Hey, my name is Steph Catudal, and I am the author of my memoir, Everything All at Once. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Boulder Books for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys about my book, my baby. And I hope I can make it out there in person one day. So we're going to do a Q&A. I have some questions that Boulder Books sent to me that I'll be answering as best as I can. The first being, can you give a brief synopsis of your book? This sounds like an easy question, but it's actually probably one of the hardest questions that an author could get, at least in my opinion, to sum up all of the hours and the months, and in my case, years, of work into a brief few paragraphs, but I'll try my best. So basically, my book is about accepting the duality of grief and recognizing that love is woven into every aspect of our lives, despite the hardships that we've been through. When I was 14 years old, my father was diagnosed with, or actually he passed away when I was 14 from terminal lung cancer. And that was only a few years after my little brother battled leukemia himself. And in the wake of my father's passing, I embarked on a decade-long journey of rebellion. From the age of 16, I was drinking heavily and eventually resorting to drugs to try to bury the sadness I wasn't ready to accept and the grief that I wasn't ready to confront. But as I came to find, suppressed sadness rots inside of us, and in some form or another, it comes out. And it wasn't until my husband was diagnosed with a different lung cancer, both non-smoking related, in 2020, that I was kind of forced to reckon with my childhood grief. And interestingly enough, rather than be angered by another cancer battle in my life, through my husband's illness, I was able to heal. I was able to accept myself and accept that all emotions, anger and fear and gratitude and joy, are all equally important in life and in the human experience. And in that acceptance, I was able to accept and forgive myself, and also form a new relationship with my father, who had passed 20 years earlier. And so really, while my husband confronted life and death, I learned how to live, and I learned to recognize all the love that had been around me always, that I just wasn't able to see because I was so dissociated from myself and from my feelings. The next question is, what inspired you to write this book? So I actually started writing this book almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. On my Facebook memories the other day, something popped up, and it was me typing, and it said, starting to write a book might take me 10 years. If that's not manifesting, I don't know what is. But so I started writing the book when I was pregnant with our second daughter, Iris. And I knew I wanted to tell a story about losing my father, and about the wake of grief that followed his passing. And I even finished the book. I finished writing this book back in 2019, I believe. But I still knew it wasn't finished. Even though I had written the last words, it felt unfinished. And it wasn't until my husband Rivs got sick that I realized it was because I hadn't yet learned to accept myself, and I was still unfinished, in a sense. We always are, and that's one of the things I learned, is that healing is never complete. It's a continuous journey. But I hadn't yet learned from my grief and from my sadness, and I hadn't yet learned to recognize all that love that had always been there. And so while Rivs was sick, I started to write about my experience. And through that, I was inspired to tell my whole story. And I hope that anyone who's been through anything difficult can relate to the messiness of my life and the pain, but also the wisdom that that journey of grief took me on. The next question is, was it painful or therapeutic to write about some of the terrible things you've gone through in your life? I had to think about this question because, to be honest, I haven't thought of myself as someone who's been through a lot of terrible things. That could be textbook dissociation. I don't know. But really, I think that, especially in looking back, I see that I've had so much love throughout my life. I came from a loving family. My parents loved each other very much. They loved us very much. I'm fortunate to be in a loving marriage with my husband. And so while certain bad things have happened to me, I still think that I'm just grateful for the life that I'm able to live. That being said, it was definitely both painful and therapeutic to write this book, as most things are. And again, that's another theme of my book, is everything all at once. No experiences contains a singular emotion. Most experiences contain the full breadth of human emotion, both, joy and pain and everything in between. So writing was cathartic because I was able to process a lot of the things that I went through over the past 2 decades. And it was also painful because I had to relive some of the hardest moments of my life, like my father's passing and the trauma of my husband being in the ICU for 101 days. He was on life support for 84 of those days and fully sedated, which was in itself a very traumatic experience. And so in order to honor my experience properly, I really did have to take myself back to that time. And yeah, it was difficult. But again, I think people write because it's therapy. I'm not a very verbally emotive person, but when I write, all of my emotions come out. And so, in that process, it was definitely both painful and therapeutic. Next question is, did you keep journals during these difficult times, or did you have to rely on your memories and the memories of those close to you? I think that's the tricky thing of writing a memoir. Memory is subjective, and even our entire lives are subjective, and we frame our lives and our experiences in whatever way we choose. That being said, I did keep a journal. That being said, I did keep a journal. Well, it was more of like an online journal. I posted a lot of my writing onto Instagram during Riv's illness. When my dad was sick, I wrote a lot of angsty poetry, 14-year-old angsty poetry. I think I was too removed from my own emotions to write literally at that time, so it all came out as prose and poetry. And when Rivs was sick, I did the same, but I think being a little more in tune with my emotions. I posted that on Instagram, not really knowing why, but I was met with so much love and so much acceptance from the online community, and it made me feel far less alone in such a deeply lonely time. To not only have people who understood grief and loss, but just to have people reach out and say, hey, I hear you and I see you and I'm here. And when we're in a difficult time, usually that's all we need. We don't need words of encouragement or words of affirmation. We just need to know that people are there. And by sharing my writing, I was able to connect to a whole network of people that wanted to be there, and we wanted to sit with each other in this hard time, without advice and without trying to make sense of it. What advice do you have for others going through extreme hardship? So I guess that what I just said kind of plays into this. I have a hard time giving advice to people going through hardship because while the experience of pain is universal, our suffering really is personal, and it means different things to us, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything at all. And so I don't like to give advice. I just like to let people know that I'm here, I'm holding space for you, and there's love always. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to recognize that even in the darkest times, there is love waiting all around us. If we can find it, or if we choose to see it in ourselves, as difficult as it is. But that love, and recognizing that love, especially during my husband's hospitalization, really carried me through. And that was, of course, the love from my sister and my mom and, you know, my friends and family, but also just this universal sense of undercurrent of love that we're all connected to, that we're all tapped into if we choose to be. What are a couple books you read during the pandemic? So my husband was in the hospital during the pandemic, so it was a very unique time for me. I didn't do a lot of reading like I know a lot of people did during the pandemic, but I did read How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, which is a book about the study on psychedelics, which really helped me understand mapping the mind and understand trauma and depression. So I loved that one. And then I also, maybe somewhat sadistically, chose to read When Breath Becomes Air, that memoir by Paul Calanthe about a young doctor who dies of lung cancer, and it's his memoir. That was a beautiful, beautiful book, and I think I was drawn to read it because I wanted to have someone to relate to, I guess. And it was a beautiful, beautiful book. Last question is there anything else you would like us to know about your book? My book is at times difficult to read because there is some tragedy in it. But I hope more than anything, if you read it, you feel a sense of self-acceptance and love, and knowing that no matter how reckless or no matter how dark your life may seem at times, that we're just supposed to love where we're at and accept where we're at and do the same for others. And I hope, even though my book can be a little sad at times, that it does feel like a big hug, just someone saying, hey, you're okay exactly where you are. So yeah, thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me. Again, thank you to Boulder Books for this opportunity, and I hope to see you guys in person one day. Maybe, I don't know. This is the awkward part, but anyways, thanks guys, we'll see you later. And my book is called Everything All at Once, and it comes out May 30th, and so buy it if you can.